So let's get started. I'm going to start off by checking the health of the market in order to see what sort of environment I'm working in. So the Insight Panel Summary tab always shows you what the day's trading is for the 4 supported market indices, but I'm also going to take a closer look at the S&P 500 to see how it's been performing in the past year or two. So first I'm going to go to the navigation panel and select Indices. And when I select a top-level item like that, it'll load the indices as rows in the table. And from here, I'm going to make sure that the chart is linked by selecting the left of these 2 linking icons. So that means that whatever row is selected is automatically charted. So I'm just going to select the S&P 500 row. And you can see we're looking at the S&P 500 in the past year, but I'm going to go back to 2 years. And here you can see that we're generally in an upward trend with the S&P 500. If I want to look at it a little more carefully, I can add in the technicals. So I'm going to add in the simple moving average. And you can see that it has just default of the 50 and 150-day simple moving average. So when I select that, they'll be just charted on top. And you can see that for the entire past 2 years, the 50-day average in red has been above the 150-day average in yellow. So that means that we're in a pretty solid upward trend. There has been a few points of reverting, back below the average, but overall it's generally upwards. So we can dig even deeper though if we want to see if we're in a value or a growth market. And to do that, I'm going to chart some ETFs as proxies for segments of the market and see how they're doing against the S&P. So specifically, we're going to look at large, mid, and small cap ETFs for both value and growth. And so it'll be 6 ETFs total. And I'm going to not only look at them, but also save them as a watch list, just those 6 ETFs. So in the future, I can just go back and look at them without having to build the watch list or find them all over again. So first, I'm just going to clear out the technicals out of the chart. And I'm going to go to the navigation panel and go to Domestic Diversified. And if you expand that, you'll see that we have some different types of ETFs. There's blend, growth, and value for large, mid, and small cap. And so first I'm just going to start out by clicking on the large growth. And that'll load 29 ETFs that are categorized as large growth ETFs in the table. And if I don't really know where to start, I can just always start by looking at the biggest ones. So I'm going to add in market cap by going to the Add Column button. And you can see that's been added as the leftmost column here. And then I'm just going to click it once and then twice to sort it from biggest to smallest. And I'm just going to take the biggest ETF that shows up. So that's VUG. And if I click on it, you can see that the Insight panel updates and has this description that's telling me that the index is a broadly diversified index of growth stocks of predominantly large U.S. companies. So that sounds perfect. So what I'm going to do is right-click it, go to Add to Watch List, and then select New. And then I can just give a name for my new watch list where I'm going to save these ETFs. So I'm going to call it my Bellwether Watch List because it's going to help me know which way the winds are blowing in the market. And you can see once I create the new watch list, it's been added under my watch lists in the navigation panel and it's been loaded in the table. So that was large growth. Now I'm going to do large value. And it's already sorted by market cap. So I can just look at the top one, VTV. If I go over, I can see that this represents predominantly large cap companies, value companies. So that sounds perfect. I'm going to right-click, go to Add to Watch List, and this time just select the already existing Bellwether watch list there. And next I'm going to go to MidCap Growth here, and the top one is IWP, and that looks like it's the Russell MidCap Growth Index. I can just double check on the right and see that it measures the performance of the MidCap Growth sector. So that sounds good. I'll right-click it, go to Add to Watch List, and go down to the Bellwether watch list. Now the MidCap Value. And for this, I can see the top one is DVY, which actually looks like it's a dividend fund. And if I look over, you can see it's actually screens by dividend per share. That's not exactly what we want, so I'll just take the next biggest one, VOE, and that's the MidCap index. So I'll just add that to my watch list, and then we'll just have 2 more after this. So then there's the small growth. When I click on that, I can see that VBK is my top or my biggest ETF in this category, and that looks like it's just a small cap growth ETF, so that looks good. I'll add it to my Bellwether watch list, and then the last one is small value. And here I can see that VBR is the top stock, and then it's just a small cap value ETF. And again, on the right, you can see some information. So I'm going to add that, and that'll be the last one that I add to my bellwether watch list. So I know that took a little bit of time, but I just have to do it once, because now if I go to my bellwether watch list, I have those 6 ETFs, which I can always go back to. So the first time you set it up, it takes a little bit of time, but then it saves a lot in the future. So from here, I'm going to chart all of these against the S&P and see which ones are up and which ones are down. So what I'm going to do is select all of them by holding down the Shift key on my keyboard. And when I do that, because the chart is linked, the left of these 2 linking icons is selected, they're all going to be charted. I'm going to go down just to the past 3 months here. And then I'm also going to go in and add the S&P 500 as a benchmark. So that's through the benchmarks menu. And then when I select that, it's added to the chart, and then I'm going to go over and select the little graph icon, which is to the right. Oh, sorry, that's not the S&P. To the right of the ticker symbol, and then when you click on it, it'll flatten the S&P. So now I can see which stocks are outperforming and which are underperforming in this 3-month period, or which ETFs are. So the top one is this VUG. That's the growth ETF. So looks like growth is outperforming, and then this other one, the IWP, is the MidCap Growth. So 2 growth ETFs are outperforming, and the rest are underperforming. So it looks like generally we're in a growth market. So now as I go forward with my research, I'm just going to keep that in mind. And again, in the future, you can just always go back to the bellwether watch list, which you've created, and just really quickly find out what sort of market you're in. So now that we can see that growth stocks are favored, I can either look for growth stocks if I want to invest with momentum, or if I'm kind of contrary or want to look for reversion to mean stocks, I can look for value stocks and wait for the momentum to turn on them. So I could build a screener from scratch, but why not see what Stock Rover already has available? Stock Rover comes with many predefined screeners, and you can download many more in the investor library. So I'm just going to clear up the navigation panel and expand my screeners, and here you can see that I have a large cap growth, and if I mouse over you can see that it's looking at some 5-year averages, and then there's small cap rockets, but I can also go to the library up in the top, and if I make sure that screeners is selected on the left, you can see all of the screeners that we have, and if you just select one, it'll show both the description and then the criteria below. So I could search for growth if I want, but there's one in particular that I was going to use, which is this MidCap Rockets. So if I click on that, you can see that it's going to find mid-cap companies between $2 and $10 billion in market cap that are growing sales and earning on price momentum. Hang on, my screen has just gone black for a second. There we go. So then if you scroll down, you can see that it's looking for market cap between 2 and 10 billion. And then it's looking at the sales 1-year change and the sales 3-year average above 15 and 12%, and operating income and 3-year operating income change between above 15 and 12. So pretty strong growth in those. And EPS 1-year and 3-year average is also above 15 and 12. So this is showing really strong growth in the past couple years. Its price is within 85% of its 52-week high, so it's kind of definitely kind of on the up. And then the 1-year return versus the S&P 500 is over 5%, and the 3-year return versus the S&P is over 12%. This is also a quant screener, which you can tell because it has this little star on the icon, and essentially that means that it will not only return the stocks but also rank them, and that's what this stuff on the right is, the highest and the weight. So essentially it's saying that it's not only going to look for stocks that have a sales 1-year change greater than 15%, but the higher is better, and it's going to give that a weight. So just so you know that that's what this on the right is. So if I like the screener, I can select to import it. So just check the box, select import one item, and that will add it under my screeners and load it in the table here. And before I do anything, I'm going to save it as a watch list. So right now I could just start researching these as they are, but screeners run new every time you click them, so the same results might not show next time I run this. So in order to make sure that I'm just working with the same set of stocks, I'm going to run it as a or save it as a watch list. So to do that, I'll go to the table, save table as watch list, and I'm actually going to customize it because I'm going to give it not only a a name, so MidCap Rockets. But I'm also going to say when I screened on it, so screened on 9, 10, 14. And so now when I just click create, it'll load in the table. But now this can also act as a mini backtest sort of for the screener. So our screeners in Stock Rover don't backtest, but if you do run a screener in the past and then save the results, you can kind of see how they've done. So now, and, if I check this in half a year, I can see kind of backtest the MidCap Rocket screener from half a year ago. So that's another benefit. So one thing you may have noticed is that when we saved this as a watch list, we still have all the same stocks, but then that rank column, which told me that which ones were the best ranked according to the quant, disappeared. But we can get it back just by going down to the screener, and instead of just clicking on it, I can right-click on it or click that little down arrow and go down to Apply Quant to Watch List and then select the MidCap Rockets. And so now we have not only the rank, but we're also looking at these within a watch list, so I can save them and remove stocks I don't want. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. And so from here, I can just continue in any way I want with these particular stocks, but I'm just going to show one way that you could possibly kind of quickly categorize and slice and dice these stocks, and then you could efficiently move from there. So what we're going to do is just chart the stocks. So it's selected in the table, and then it's automatically charted. I'm going to get rid of the S&P, and then I'm going to go to the benchmarks, and I'm going to add in not only its sector, but also its industry. And I'm going to look at the past year, and I'm going to flatline the sector this time. And I really like looking at this view of both the sector and the industry and the stock because it gives you a lot of information. You can not only see how the stock's doing, you can see how it's doing against its industry and sector, but you can also see how the industry is doing against its sector. So you can see, is this a stock that's doing really well in an industry that isn't doing well, or is this a stock that's doing really well in an industry that is doing well, or is the stock doing okay in an industry that is doing really well? It can kind of give you a whole other layer of information. So what I'm going to do is just go through a couple of these and categorize them just based on how their price looks. So for the first one, I can see that looks pretty strong. The industry of building materials is outperforming the sector, so that's good, and the stock is outperforming both of them. So just based on that, I'm going to color it by right-clicking, going to color, and select green. So in my mind, just for today's purposes, green means I'm feeling pretty good about the stock. So selecting green, I can go to the next one, TRN, and see it's a pretty similar story. The industry is doing well, and then the stock is doing even better. So I'm going to right-click it, go to color, and select green. The next one is SES, and if I click on that, I can see that the stock is doing well. It has some kind of worrying spikes here, but overall it looks kind of strong, and but its industry is actually underperforming the sector as a whole. So even though the stock is doing well, the industry isn't doing as well, and for that I'm going to color it yellow. This next one is XRS, and let's see, and so hang on, looks like it's not. Okay, here we go. Here's XRS, and I can see that that one looks pretty good, so I can just color that green. And again, I can just quickly go through each one and kind of put them in categories so you can know how to proceed. And the next one is KOG, and say I look at this and say, no thank you, that looks kind of too volatile for my taste. I can just remove it from the watch list entirely. So I can right-click and go to remove from current watch list. And that way I don't even have to think of it again. I don't have to remember, oh, that's the one I don't like. I can just completely remove it from my view, and I don't have to think about it again. So say you go through all of the stocks. I won't, just for time purposes, but then you can also group them by color. And to do that, you just right-click any of the column headers and go to Group By and select Color. And when I do that, you can see the first section will be the non-colored ones, but below that then I can see all the ones that I colored green, yellow, any other colors that I decided. And then from here I can say add them to a new watch list, which is maybe my favorites from the one of this first watch list. So I'm just going to hold Shift and select these 3 green stocks. I'm going to right-click and go to Add to Watch List and create a new watch list. And then I'm going to call this one MidCap Rocket Picks. Click Save, and now you can see, I'm just going to ungroup the table first. So now you can see that there was the original watch list, and then it's pretty obvious that these are the best of that one. And then I have these 3 stocks that I liked, or more. And I'm just going to also uncolor them now because I've already separated them from the pack. So that's just one way that you can kind of run, find a screener and then sort through all the stocks and categorize them in an efficient manner. So next we're going to look at some screeners to find stocks that are out of favor. Maybe they're a bit cheaper, and so we saw earlier that value stocks weren't being favored, so maybe these are some value stocks that are ready to bounce back. And for this there's another screener that I had in mind, which is in the library, and it's called the Revert to Mean screener. And if I click on it, you can see that it's find stocks that in the S&P that underperformed or outperformed in the past 5 years, underperformed in the past year, but in the last month they've been kind of bouncing back. So I'm going to check to import it and click import. And I'm also going to show you how you can chart a screener just to see if it's kind of doing what you want. So I'm going to clear the chart, right-click Revert to Mean, and select Chart from the drop-down menu, and that'll add that screener to the chart. I'm going to go back to 5 years, and I'm going to add in the S&P 500 as a benchmark. And then I'm going to set it as a baseline. So here, just like the screener said, these are stocks that outperformed the S&P over the past 5 years. So it's good to see that the screener is outperforming in the past 5 years. In the past year, if I click there, you can see it's been underperforming. And then if I go back to 1 month, you can see it's outperforming again. So that's just kind of a check to make sure that do the stocks in the screener kind of look like how you want them to. So from there, we can just go back to the table where there's these 17 stocks that have passed the screener, and they're ranked from top to bottom. And now before saving them all as a watch list, I'm going to be a little bit more picky about which ones I even put in the watch list to begin with. And so instead of kind of saving them all and then removing the ones I don't like, I'm just going to just choose the ones that I do like kind of right off the bat. And for this, we're going to look at the analyst estimates. And in particular, I want to see analyst estimates that have been revised upwards from the estimate 90 days ago. So if you're not aware, this information is available in the Detail tab in the Insight panel. And then in that first section, Analyst Estimates here. And I'm just going to make this wider. And here you can see the average EPS estimate, number of analysts, etc. And then I really like the EPS trends part here. So you can see the average EPS estimate for the current quarter and next quarter, and the current year and next year. And then you can see what those estimates were 7, 30, 60, and 90 days ago. And then you can also see the percent change. And so to sum up the whole table in just one place, I like to look at this bottom right number, which is the estimate versus 90 days ago. So if it's negative, like this one is for PVH, that means that the estimate for next year's earnings has actually been revised downwards by, in this case, 0.3%. So that's kind of a bad sign. Generally, you want to see revisions upwards. So this is negative, so I kind of want to ignore this stock. So I could go through all these stocks one by one and look at them all in the Detail tab, but there's actually a quicker way to do that by going to the Growth tab. I've added in this EPS next year estimate trends column, and if I click it once, it'll sort lowest to highest, and then if I reverse the sort, here I can see, if I just mouse over, this will sort by the largest upward revision downward. So in this screener results, there's 17 stocks, and then the one with the highest upward revision looks like it's LB, and its EPS for next year was revised upwards by 1.4%. Below that, this one was 0.9%, revised upwards 0.9%. This one was revised upwards by 0.6%. This one by 0.3%. This one by 0.3%. This one by 0.3. The next two didn't have any change versus 90 days ago. And then below that, they start going negative. So here I can automatically just take the ones that have been revised upwards. And actually, if you look over at the rank column, I didn't go over the rank column too much, but essentially it tells you, which passed the best. You can see that these are actually kind of all over the place. There was rank 5, 2, 13, 10, 4, 16. So if I were going through all of the stocks, that could kind of take a while to get all the way down to the 16th. But here I can just kind of shortcut ahead and find the ones that just have upward revisions, which were kind of scattered all over the screener. So I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select the ones with the positive revision. And I'm going to right-click, and this time I'm going to tag them instead. So tagging is a premium feature. It does have some advantages over coloring, although they're kind of similar, and you can also just color these if you're just a basic user. But I'm just going to say, research further, or whatever you want. Click Enter. And now all of these stocks have been tagged by Research Further, and now I can just look at them another way. So, for example, say I wanted to see how they're priced against stocks in their same industry, I can go to the Versus Industry tab. And this is a tab that I've created in Stock Rover with a bunch of versus industry metrics. So if you look at, initially there's just these returns versus industry, and then if you scroll over, you can see that there's these industry deciles, and then at the end, these industry grades. And so for this example, I'm going to go over to the price to earnings industry decile. So if you don't know what this metric is, you can just right-click it and go to Explain. And that'll bring up the column info box here. And this, and then you can just see what the metric means. So this is the decile rank of the company's PE ratio among the PE ratio of all the companies in the same industry. Companies are cheapest, score a 1, and most expensive, score a 10. So essentially, the lower means the cheaper stock. So I'm just going to close out of that, and I'm going to sort by the PE industry decile. And here you can see that there's a couple of them that are, under 5. So say I'm just interested in all the ones that have the cheaper valuation. I'm just going to hold down Shift, right-click again, and go to Tag, and then also tag these as Research Further. So once I've done this and I've looked at them with whatever metrics I want, I can go back to those tagged tickers by right-clicking and going to Tag, and then Manage Tags here. And then when I do that, it brings up kind of our the Manage Tags window, and here you can see all the tags that you have listed. So I only just have one, and then you can see all the stocks are here. And I could just delete some from here if I don't want, or add some to this tag as well. But I can also save them. So this time I'm just going to save them as another watch list. I use watch lists all the time. So, and I'm going to call it the Research Further watch list. It's because these were all the ones that were tagged with Research Further. And then once I do that, I'm going to delete the Research Further tag entirely. And that'll remove all the stocks. Click Save, and now I can see all of those stocks that I had right-clicked and tagged with Research Further are now in this watch list, and then the tag spot has been removed, so now I can tag them with kind of finer gradations of thoughts. So that's another way that you can just kind of categorize the stocks that you found. So now I'm going to go back a little and look at an alternate workflow. So instead of focusing on value versus growth and then screening appropriately, I'm going to just look at how the different sectors are performing. So I'm going to clear the chart, and I'm going to just clean up the navigation panel. And I'm going to click the top, the sectors, and that'll load all of the sectors in the table. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select them all, and that means that they'll all be charted below. And then I'm also going to go in and add the S&P 500, and then I'm going to set it as a baseline. And then here I can really easily see, this is 1 month, I'm going to go back to 3 months. I can really easily see which sectors have outperformed the S&P in the past 3 months. And then, so here I can see that technology is the number 1. It's outperformed the S&P by 2.3%, but then it looks like healthcare was up by 0.9% over the S&P, and then real estate is just barely with it at 0.1% over. So from here, I'm going to actually unlink the chart, and this lets me work in the table without affecting the chart. And I'm just going to select technology so I can remember that that's the top one. And I'm going to go over to the notes panel. And here I'm just going to add a note to let me know which are the best sectors. And so then when I go back, say I start researching in a couple days, I don't have to repeat this process to find the best sectors. I can just go back to my note. So click Note, and then it's added technology as the title, but I'm just going to say best sectors in last 3 months. And it's tech, real estate, and healthcare. When I click Save, it's been added to my notes here, and it's also timestamped so then I can know when I said the best sectors in the last 3 months were tech, real estate, and healthcare. And so then again, in a couple of days, I don't have to redo this whole chart setup. I can just quickly look at my note to be reminded which sectors I'm liking right now. So from here, I'm just going to focus on technology because I want to find the best industry within the best sector. The best sector is technology, so I'm going to click into it. And that'll load all of the technology industries in the table. So here you can see that there's 20 rows, which is too many to chart all at once. you can only chart up to 12 lines. So I'll have to use a different method to kind of find the best industry. So I'm going to go to the versus sector tab. And that has all of these returns versus the sector. And then I can sort by these. So I'm going to go to the 3-month return versus sector and click it once and then twice. And when you do that, you can see it's sorting largest to smallest, and the top one is computer systems, which has outperformed the sector by 10.4%. The one right below it is health information services, and that outperformed the sector by 5.5%. So this computer systems is doing quite a bit better. So I'm going to focus now on computer systems. So if I want to find the best performing stock within in the past 3 months in this this industry, I can actually have a shortcut and go to the summary tab and look at this top movers part. So if you have a higher level item like an industry as a whole selected in the table, the summary tab shows some different information. In the bottom there will be this top 5 movers, and this is for 6 months, but you can just change the time period by clicking the change time span. So I can look at the past 3 months, and then it'll show you the best performers, the worst performers, and the most active stocks, top 5 stocks in this industry over the time period. So here I can really easily see that INVE, which I mouse over, I can see is Identiv, had a return of 124.1% in the past 3 months. So that's the best stock. And it's also hyperlinked, so if I just click on it, it automatically adds that stock to the table. So it was really quick to go from finding the best sector, the best industry, and now the best stock within all of that. So from here, I can continue to do some more research just with this stock, but I always like to put in some peers and kind of see it in context. So now I'm going to go to the peers tab in the insight panel. And when I select that, it'll show all of the stocks in the same industry as the selected stock. The advantage of keeping them in the peers tab instead of just looking at them all in the table is kind of instead of loading them all and then removing the ones I don't want, I can just cherry pick the best ones from the right and then only look at those ones. So it's just a bit quicker to only choose a couple that I really want to look at as opposed to finding all of the ones that I don't want to look at. So if you're not familiar with the peers tab, it operates a lot like the table. So I'm going to just make it a bit wider, but you can modify the columns or add them. You can sort and filter the columns. So I'm going to show you INVE has a market cap of 164 million, so it's a bit smaller. So say I only want to see stocks, the peer stocks that are roughly the same size. I can right-click, go to filter, and then say I'll look at, 150 up to a billion. I can hit enter, and then now I'm looking at only the peer stocks that are on the smaller side in this industry. And then from here I can sort by the 3-month return versus the industry. So when I do that, click twice, I can see that INV is top, which we already knew, but then below that are some other tickers that also have really strong returns, but they're also much cheaper. You can see there's this price to earnings industry decile, so INV is at 7, so that's towards the more expensive end of the spectrum. Then these 2 stocks right below it are at 1, so those are kind of interesting. I'm going to add them to the table just by clicking the little icon, the little green plus icon there, and that just adds them as research tickers in the table. And I'm also going to add this VJet as well. And so I've already found some competitors to kind of look at with INVE. I'm going to just remove the market cap filter, and I can see when I do that, this other stock appears, SEKEF, which hadn't showed up before, and that's because it's much, much bigger, but it also is really cheap, and it also has really strong returns, so I'm just going to add that to the table as well by clicking its little green plus icon. So now if you go over, you can see that we have 5 stocks that are all in the same industry, which is the best performing industry within the best performing sector. And we can just, again, look at these any way that we want. So before I continue, I always save them as watch lists. So I'm going to click save table as watch list, and I'm going to call them computer systems picks. So that way I know kind of where they're coming from. They're from computer systems, and they're my picks of that industry. And then once I've saved it as a watch list, I can remove them as research tickers by clearing the research box, clicking the X at the end. And now you can see that they just end up here, and I can, I can chart them. I can do whatever research that I want to continue with. So those are 3 different workflows that kind of show how you can use Stock Rover efficiently to sort stocks and find the best ones. There's 2 other tips that I wanted to go over that I think are really useful and not everyone can find or knows are there. There's the blue button here. This blue back button goes back to the previous table setup. So if I click back, you can see that those all come back as research tickers. And then another tip is the down arrow here, and you can see if you click that, it'll show the last configuration of the research tickers. So here, if I wanted to go back to when it was just INVE, I can do that. And so those together kind of show, let you kind of work backwards or kind of go back to a previous configuration. But other than that, that's all I have for the demo. So I think we'll bring on Howard now and go over some of the questions. So any questions you have at all, please type them in.